Have you gone Kitless yet? In today's video I'm going to show you how I make a basic Kitless pen. The biggest barrier for me when I first got started was getting the first one done, so I'll be showing you all the tools I used and listing the exact measurements so that you can be successful. And once you get past the hurdle of the first one, you can kind of customize them and make them your own from there. So let's get into it. For the first part of this video, you're going to notice that I'm using a metal lathe. You don't have to use a metal lathe, because all of these operations can also be done on a wood lathe. It's just easier to make those fine-tuning adjustments on a metal lathe for like the Tenon and stuff, which I'm going to show you. Definitely would also recommend the use of collet chucks. There's more points of contact around that blank, so it's easier to get things concentric, which is really, really important when it comes to these pens. This is a 3/4 inch collet because my blank is 3/4 inch in diameter. Don't forget to lock the collet in place on that threaded part before you put in your material. It locks into the ring that I showed. Then our very first step is just facing the material. You want to always start from square. Next, I'll use a smaller drill bit to get a centered hole. So I'm putting on the drill truck here and just putting in a smaller drill bit. Just to make sure the next bit we use goes in straight. The material I'm using today here is Alumilite resin, so it drills really easy, it threads really easy. This is usually the most common material you'll see in Kitless pens. We'll replace that Jacobs drill truck for a live center in the tailstock and start making a tenon on this blank. Tenon needs to be about 13.8 or 13.9 millimeters in diameter. And the reason for that is because we're going to use this triple start 14 by 0.8 millimeter die for the external threads on the body. The general rule of thumb for dies in this kind of project is about 1 to 2/10 of a millimeter smaller than the first number on the die for the tenons. That gives it space to thread onto the cap. Since our die is 14 millimeter, we need a 13.8 or a 13.9 millimeter tenon. Here you see me zeroing out my calipers to see just how close we are to that 13.8 millimeter tenon. So we're definitely closer there, but still not quite to where we need to be. So for these last steps, in order to not take off too much material, sometimes I'll start using sandpaper. And you can add a little bit of a chamfer to that tenon just to make the threads go on smoothly. And I like to do this last kind of sanding step because I can kind of sneak up on the fit. Right, looks like we're at 14.1, so not that much more to take off. I'm still just going to sand and sneak up on the fit. And I'm being really careful to keep the tenon flat here. You don't want to sand it into like a curve, because then your threads won't start at some places and will grab at others. Switch to a slightly higher grit here just because I'm so close. That last measurement was like right at 14. So just need it slightly smaller than that and then we'll be good to go. Alright, there it is. That's a number I'm happy with. 13.86 is pretty good. It doesn't have to be exactly on that number. It's actually really hard to get it exactly on that number. All I'm doing here is hitting it with a little bit of 1000 grit sandpaper just so my threads are a little bit shinier. The tops of them you can actually polish, a lot of people do. It is a little bit time consuming, but it's all about what you want to put into it. Here we have our die in a die holder. I got this from neilsniche.com and I don't think they're making them anymore. But this die holder is really helpful in order to get things threaded. And I thread it right on the lathe because everything's already lined up. I do think you can get these die holders in other places. Maybe Turner's Warehouse makes and sells them. But basically threads into the tailstock, and then you thread it onto your tenon just like this. So a little bit forward and a little bit backward, and I am using lubricant to lubricate the threads. I left that part out of the video, but you do need some kind of cutting oil on there just so the threads cut. Alumilite's super forgiving, super soft, so which also makes it the perfect material for taking threads. I think now's a good moment to point out that there's a lot of people out there making Kitless pens, and everybody has their own methods, little different things that they do differently. So that works for them. This is what works for me. So I hope you find something useful in this video, even if you don't do it exactly the same way that I do it. Our next step here, putting in our 5/16 drill bit, we're drilling really slow. We're trying to get down to a depth of 77 millimeters here. And the goal of this hole is that we're trying to make it big enough that our Schmidt K5 ink converter fits in it. And those are about 77 millimeters long. There's a little bit of wiggle room at the end of that, but that's how deep I drill mine. There's a bunch of different methods for checking how deep you've drilled. A lot of people mark their drill bits. There's also stop collars you can buy, which are helpful. I like to use this pair of calipers. And all I'm doing is using the depth rod on the back just to see where we're at and how much further we need to go. I think we're at 36 or so there. We need to get to 77. I'm just kind of drilling in, backing out and clearing the shavings off. And then I'll drill in some more. That's the other really cool part about this Alumilite resin, is that it's so forgiving when you're drilling and when you're turning. I can usually do things pretty quickly. One final depth check for us here, and that'll work. 77.4 is close enough. And then I always test fit the converter to make sure it goes in far enough. You'll notice they were still sticking out a little bit, but I know I'm deep enough, so I'm going to clear some shavings out at the end of this thing. You could probably use compressed air as well, but after I cleared some shavings out, it fits. I use a little hook to get that converter out, or else there's no way you're going to get it out. Next up, we got to drill a hole for the section threads that will be tapped into the inside of this body piece. So I'm drilling a 10mm hole because I'm using an 11x1 tap. This hole doesn't have to be that deep, it's about 10 millimeters or so. Again, we're just using that 11x1 tap, which is a single start. I don't use triple starts for the section because you're not taking the section off that often, at least as often as you're doing the body to cap connection. So this is at an M11x1 tap. We're gonna put it in our drill chuck and then add some cutting oil and get some threads cut for the inside of this body. Kind of the same method as before here, you're just adding a little bit of oil with the lathe off. I'm doing this by hand, you're just rotating it back and forth. I start the thread and I cut it a little bit and then I back it out. And I cut a little bit further and then I back it out again. This doesn't have to be too deep. The tenon on your section is usually no more than 10 millimeters long. Off camera here, I'm actually adding a little bit of pressure to the tailstock to push it into the piece. Not a lot, just enough to keep it moving. Here are those internal threads that we made. Again, that's the piece that's going to thread into the section, which is the part of the fountain pen that you hold. So this piece is basically ready to turn. So I'm going to take it out of the collet chuck and kind of inspect anything. This here is a mandrel, and Rick Harrell made this mandrel. You can find him on penturners.org, and the vendor section is where I found him. He does great work. Essentially, you thread this mandrel into your pen, you put the mandrel into the headstock, and then you can turn your Kitless pen body. Thank you so much for watching. If there's something that you do differently, definitely put it in the comments, or if there's something you think I left out, feel free to add it to the discussion. Part 2 of this series will be me chucking up this Kitless body and actually turning it down to shape, sanding and polishing it. So if you're waiting on that, go ahead and subscribe to my page. And thank you so much for watching.